Blue Cliff Record, Case 88. Gensha's guiding and liberating beings. Engo's introduction. Methods used for teaching in our school break 2 into 3. Speaking of profundity from within the noumenon requires thorough investigation. In accord with circumstances, the master responds, smashing to bits the golden chains and subtle barriers, leaving no trace. Where is there any entanglement? Those who have the third eye see the following. Main subject. Gensha said to the assembly, all teachers everywhere speak of guiding and liberating sentient beings. What about when encountering 3 kinds of disability? A blind person cannot see the master raising a host. A deaf person cannot hear the master's words. A mute person cannot speak. How would you guide and liberate such people? If you cannot, then how can they receive the benefits of Buddha Dharma? A monk asked Umon about this. Umon said, bow. The monk did so. Umon gestured as if to poke him with his staff. The monk backed away. Umon said, you're not blind. Then he told the monk to come closer. The monk approached him. Umon said, you're not deaf. He then asked, do you understand? The monk responded, no, I don't. Umon said, you're not mute. At this, the monk attained some insight. Secho's verse, blind, deaf, mute. In darkness, no response to potentialities. In the heavens, on the earth, laughable, lamentable. The sharpest eye cannot discern the true form. The keenest ear cannot recognize the mysterious tune. How can that match sitting alone at an open window? Leaves fall, flowers bloom, each in their own time. Do you understand or not? An iron hammerhead with no hole. Feel free to make yourselves comfortable. I know we've all forgotten what that means. And sit where you feel you should sit, disregarding our seating chart completely. It's okay. You can understand I'm making a joke. Ha ha. We do our best thinking, oh, so and so can be here, and seniority, and someone needs a chair, and someone should be in the back, and someone should be close by, and all these considerations. Oh well. Considerations like not hearing too well, right? Or having a body that's not really cooperating. All sorts of things. We think, well, I can work this out. I just won't do what they think I'm going to do. Yes, that's a good idea. You can hear better if you turn that off. And we'll sweat a bit. Why not? We've had quite a strange time, haven't we? With terrible smoke and then clearing up and, oh, let's open the windows. Oh no, it's back up to 190 or whatever. Okay, close the windows. Don't inhale. So we've had some ceremonies this session today, celebrating Hoenji Day, chanting Ryogonshu, the esoteric mantra of the Shurangama Sutra, which we've been working with in Dharma study. We heard the first half of the Diamond Sutra and we chanted it. And the pace, you may have noticed, was brisk. And you also may have noticed when your mind wandered just a tiny bit. What happened? Where the hell am I? That's good, right? But it's also good to find your place again. And just realize that one slight bit of absent-mindedness has a very powerful effect on what? Everything. Certainly our chanting, our ability to find our way, and you might say, in a broader sense, our karma. We think, oh, it's such a trivial thing. So what if I couldn't keep up? It doesn't matter. I mean, really, look around, right? Look at the world today. And I can't chant the Ryogonshu, oh well. But then think about it. Think what this practice really does when you do it 100%. When you really take it to heart. Don't think too hard. Tomorrow, speaking of ceremonies, tomorrow a baby is born. Shoan will become a monk. And you can see in his open face, his open heart, shining. How natural this is. Yesterday, July 17th, was the 50th anniversary of my brother's death. Jonathan Chayat, age 20. Always age 20, while the rest of us go on. I was 12, little over 12, when he was born, and my sister was born 2 years before that. So because we had very little money and my parents were trying to make a living on my stepfather's art, and we lived on a highway that was frequented only by trucks, we had a lot of difficulty buying food, for example. And in order to create and try to sell the things that my stepfather made, it fell to me after school to take care of these little ones. And I really was the mother from about 3 or so in the afternoon until maybe bedtime. And so we had a very deep relationship of that sort. As Nikyu said in his very moving and profound talk yesterday, whatever time death comes is the right time. But how we resist. My brother was on his bicycle. He and his girlfriend were going to Pratt's Falls. He came to a steep hill going down, and he crossed Route 20 just as a speeding car came, as the saying goes, out of nowhere. July 17th, 1976. I hadn't really been able to spend much time with him after being his surrogate mother. He was only 6 when I left for college. And because of difficult family circumstances, we were kept apart for many years. My mother's memoir, which I edited and finished as she was dying, filled in some of those gaps. So I wanted to share, first of all, an excerpt she wrote as the opening paragraph to her section about Jonathan. This is from Snow Falling on Cedars by David Gutterson. Has anyone read it? Snow Falling on Cedars. So here's the quote. Grief could attach itself with permanence. It attached itself and then it burrowed inside and made a nest and stayed. It ate whatever was warm nearby. And then the coldness settled in permanently. You learned to live with it. And she wrote, "This is the first time I have read anything that came close to describing my reaction to the deaths of Leonard, my father, when he was 27, and then of Jonathan at age 20. On the back of the book that we put out posthumously was an old-fashioned email. Back in those days, you got in your inbox, this looked like this. It said, from Sylvia Shayat to Sherry Shayat, date December 21st, 2009. Subject, haiku. This is about my stepfather after Jonathan's death. The fawn came every day to nibble bread from his hand. It eased his sorrow. Jonathan was incredibly gifted from the earliest age. As I said, I spent the first 6 years of his life very closely with him. He was particularly passionate about music. And even as a baby, he had perfect pitch. My mother would sing a couple of notes, he would reproduce them exactly, and all of his baby singing was quite extraordinary. He wrote an opera when he was 6 years old, composing arias to a children's book called The Most Beautiful Song in the World. And he crammed so much into those 20 years. It was as though he knew he didn't have much time. He finished high school in 3 years, same thing with Syracuse University, graduated cum laude, while working several jobs as a photographer and a carpenter, and played clarinet and saxophone in area jazz groups, created sculpture in metal, immersed himself in philosophy, literature, all the arts, and he loved the outdoors and took many long bike trips throughout the US and Canada. He lived each and every moment to the fullest. And of course, it was that velocity of his life, hurtling down that hill, crossing that road, that brought the moment of death. After he died, we were informed by a police car. Someone came out and told us we were at my parents' place in Forestburg. And of course, everyone was completely wiped out. I still remember my mother's scream, "No." So I was the one who had to go and identify the body. went to the coroner's office and I looked. There was this glass wall. And through the glass, I could see on a stretcher this huge lumberjack wearing a plaid shirt, jeans, huge beard. Like, who's that? Sign on the line. Who was that? A month after his death, my first husband, Lou, and I moved to Syracuse. Lou was here on a one-year appointment in the religion department, teaching Houston Smith's classes. Some of you remember Houston Smith? He was such a wonderful man, and he and his wife Kendra, really great. Anyway, we came up here for that. And I said, I'm not going to Syracuse. And Lou said, it's only 1 year. No way. But, you know, then this was that late winter. He tried to persuade me. And he said, but Jonathan's there. He's going to go and do his graduate work. You know, he just finished his undergraduate work. And I thought, yeah, that's true. I really want to get to know him as a young man. We ended up living in his apartment on Westcott Street for that year. And I tried to learn all I could in that interwoven presence and absence. So that first year in Syracuse was a time of connecting with him through sitting, dream states, darkness. The darkness that's referred to in this koan. And I still have a self-portrait that I painted in the apartment that really captured that time of grief, no knowing. Not just the date yesterday, but this koan about Gensha brought all of this back to me. Gensha Shibi, born 835, Tang Dynasty, China, died 908. He and his father were fishermen. He had no formal education. One stormy day, they were out fishing and his father fell overboard. And he was carried away by a swift current. Gensha did everything he could to save him, but he couldn't. Father drowned. Such remorse. Horror. His heart was torn open. And this piercing experience of seeing his father swept away and not able to save him was what led to his becoming a monk. There's so many of us with early losses. He was ordained by Ryu Nishigon. He was a disciple of Isan Ryu. And Gensho was 30, which was kind of late to become a monk. He sat throughout the day and night, fasted frequently, just wore a patched robe, straw sandals. And Seppo Gisun was brother monk in that assembly. And he was really struck by Gensha's arduous, penitent practice and called him the ascetic. The other monks seemed rather uncomfortable with his dedication, his extreme austerity, renunciation. And maybe they were jealous. But anyway, they made fun of him. They called him the impossible one. It's impossible for someone like you, an unsophisticated, uneducated rube, to ever get it. That may remind you of someone else. Who? Yes, the sixth ancestor was a young, illiterate woodcutter, no, Wenong. And he went to the fifth ancestor's place after hearing someone chanting, so maybe everybody wants to hear what you just said. The Diamond Sutra. And awakening at the line, it's almost on Jikyo's tongue. Not that one. That's a good one too. But the one to which he awakened, anyone? Exactly. Develop a mind that alights on nothing whatsoever, that abides nowhere. Yeah. So he went to see the fifth ancestor, Hongzhen. And Hongzhen asked, "Where are you from?" Typical Zen question, right? And then he said, "And what do you hope to attain?" Wenong said, "I'm from Lingnan," which means south of the ranges, south of the Nanling Mountains. And he said, "I want to be a Buddha. Nothing else." Hongzhen said, "But you're from Lingnan and the jungle rat." In other words, not Han Chinese, right? Not high, but kind of, an ethnic minority. How can you possibly become a Buddha? Young Wenong said, "People come from the north or south, not their Buddha nature. The lives of this jungle rat and the masters aren't the same. But how can our Buddha nature differ? Well, we know what happened then. A few turns, but he became the sixth ancestor. This is kind of a long koan and a long talk, I'm sure, and maybe you want to just break into yoga at any point, that's fine. I mean it. You can stand up. Wonderful. And then sit down. I spoke about Gensha at Golden Wind Sesshin at DBZ, September 27th, 2019, case 85 of another collection, The Iron Flute. That, as most of you know, is translated by Nyogen Senzaki with the editing help of his disciple, Ruth Strout McCandless. So that was September 27th, 2019. On September 20th of that year, the day before that session began, young people had led the largest worldwide mass protest for action on global warming in history. How about you young people? Were you there? They demanded that we, the old folks, acknowledge and take responsibility for the degradation of our planet and work to restore it. They were inspired by, guess who? You probably know her name. A Swedish climate scientist. She was then 16 years old. She said, "Yes, the climate crisis is the most complex issue that we have ever faced, and it's going to take everything from our part to stop it. But the solution is black and white. We need to stop the emissions of greenhouse gases. Because either we limit the warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade over pre-industrial levels, or we don't. Either we reach a tipping point where we start a chain reaction with events way beyond human control, or we don't. Either we go on as a civilization, or we don't. There are no gray areas when it comes to survival. We need to treat the crisis as a crisis. When your house is on fire, you don't sit down and talk about how nice you can rebuild it once you put out the fire." Well, we all know how that went down. 7 years later, it was 2019, 7 years later, her warning, and those of scientists everywhere, have been, what? Dismissed. And I would say usurped by spiraling greed, hatred, and ignorance.
But also manifest.
Yes, we know her warning through our lived experience. here we are, thinking back over these few years, the pandemic, unthinkable heat waves, mass extinctions, wildfires and the smoke we've been inhaling, extreme weather events that seem to mirror global politics. Cause and effect. Everything is interconnected. So it's now 2026. What do you think? 7 years from now. Oh, she's so depressing. Why can't we have a nice talk? You know, looking back at that time, September 2019 was the eve of the pandemic. September, the Jewish High Holy Days, a time of deep introspection, prayer, and atonement started that September. This year, Rosh Hashanah, the new year, begins the evening of 9/11. Exactly 25 years. 9/11. 25 years later. This year. And Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, starts the evening of September 20th and goes through and extends until well after sundown on Mandala Day. So that's where I'll be. Incredible. The Lotus Sutra, which we will chant tomorrow in yet another ceremony, before the ceremony in the later part of the morning. It will be our Mandala Day service. The Lotus Sutra tells us that we are living in a burning house. So how can we just sit back? Oh, relax. It'll all be okay. Really? No. We must sit with all our might. We must wake up. And when we do, what? It must be actualized. Tikkun olam is the Jewish term for seeing clearly, taking responsibility, and repairing the world. We are all interconnected. It's not someone else's fault. Here we are. It's up to us. And you know, in our Zen practice, we know that to sit is to work on inner climate change. That's what we mean by faith in mind. change your mind. Hakuin Zenji said, just one sitting and all our harmful karma will be erased. Who here has really done one sitting? This is so important. Don't sit waiting for the bell to ring. It's rung. And we'd better get with it. Wake up. Man, you know, when we sit, the whole universe sits. When we change, within everything changes. This is the meaning of faith. It's not a theory. It's not a philosophy. It's our lived experience. This life. We chant Namu Daibo Sa to become the great bodhisattvas that we are. To become bodhisattvas who act. Not just smiling serenely, right? But who feel deeply the suffering. Who vow. We chant Kanzeon. We vow to hear all cries. To really hear, to have our all senses are in this hearing. To hear all cries and to speak out on behalf of those who cannot speak. Humans who have been silenced, scorned, violated, murdered, and all the creatures struggling to live, struggling to breathe, to find pure water on this beautiful, vulnerable planet. We vow to save them all. I have spoken about a book that Myoju told me about a number of times now, and I keep going back to it. It's called In This Body, in This Lifetime. Really inspiring stories of a woman Zen master in Japan named Sozen Nagasawa Roshi. And there's stories of her students who were living through the war in the Pacific, during that war and just after it. And, you know, everything was in total disarray. There was nowhere to live. There was no food. Bombs fell. People were dying everywhere. Nothing was as it had been. Such grief, such confusion, such trauma. And of course, it's going on today all over the globe. But I'm just particularly pointing this out for this book because under her guidance and fierce direction, those young women, nuns and laywomen, practiced with such conviction, constantly shouting "moo," not just, off somewhere, but right in the zendo. I recommend it. I told it to somebody. She looked at me like, really? In the zendo? Anytime, please. Feel free. This is the point of what we're doing, right? I was just like, how come I haven't awakened yet? They really felt that they needed to purify their karma. It's different from some of us who think it must be someone else's fault. To take on the responsibility means to confront your own karma. What brought you here? Oh, I saw something in the newspaper. Years ago, we used to have newspapers. Anyway, we were all brought here somehow. But it's really important to know that we come because of our karma. And to point to all the terrible things that have happened to us, not with some sense of, oh, poor me, or maybe a therapist can help me work this out, but to really see it. I'm so fortunate to do this practice, to really change within, so that I can be here for others, all others, not the ones I like, all others. Yes. Anyway, I recommend the book because what they went through is what we are going through, whether we want to admit it or not. This period, this time, we must pierce through the veils of complacency. Oh, I should go back to Gensha, the koan. Okay. No more. Well, maybe just a little more. Just to say that I think if we can speak honestly this way to each other, it's really a good beginning. We're here together. This is an amazing force field of bodhisattva mind. Okay, one day, Gensha was on pilgrimage. While contemplating the emptiness of all phenomena, he stubbed his toe on a rock. Ouch! In the midst of that cry came the question, if all is emptiness, where does this terrible pain come from? Who is feeling this pain? That's a good question for you to ask in Sesshin. You don't need to find a rock. Who? So his question and his realization burst forth as one. He cried out, Bodhidharma did not come to China. The second ancestor did not receive transmission. And you also may remember the story of Umon, who was his brother monk under Seppo. Umon got his foot caught. Remember? When Bokshu, the sandal maker who is living off in the mountains, slammed the door and caught his foot and broke it. Umon had a deep realization. And some of you have worked on case 3 of the gateless barrier, Gute. Gute's one finger. What happened to his young attendant? He got his finger cut off. And at that, when Gute raised his finger, the boy was enlightened. Okay. Of course, I am not encouraging you to imitate these situations. It won't work. You can even try cutting off your arm and standing in the snow when this winter comes, but it has to be what? Your own, unexpected, not a projection, not an imitation. Physical pain is really not necessary, but it does come. And when it does, how do we work with it? That's a really important question that several people have asked. What am I going to do about my pain? Yeah? And, it's temporary. Even though you might not believe that you'll be able to walk out of the Zendo tomorrow, I can almost guarantee it. Almost. Depends on what you do tonight. But there are so many different kinds of pain that are much more difficult than a broken leg or a cut finger. Maybe some long-held trauma coming to the foreground of your consciousness. As we heard, the shock of a terrible loss, a sudden illness, a feeling that life is no longer worthwhile, can't continue. In any case, what's happening in all these situations is a feeling of being pushed to extremity. And Sesshin, in its own small way, even 3 days, even 2.5 days, is that. We are being pushed to extremity. Those of you who have never gone to Rohatsu, you really should. It will clear everything up. Yeah, right? So we're pushed to extremity, and if our practice has matured to some degree, then all these long cherished identity stories, beliefs, etc., are smashed. Try it. Be willing, in other words. From this point on, in this session, think of the worst thing that can befall you and go there. Sit all night. Oh, then how am I going to be in any way capable of doing all the ceremonies tomorrow? Try it. It's just up to you, really. Your mind changes, right? We're talking about this. Change your mind. When you can really feel, as those young women did in Japan, that this is your chance to purify. Okay, look, I know some of you have perfectly wonderful karma. Okay, great. Congratulations. You still have to sit sesshin. There is a chance you may experience some discomfort. Just take it on. Take it on as your opportunity. Don't try to avoid it. Don't think, okay, how can I make this a little bit better? Give it up, give it up, give it up. So anyway, Seppo Gison went to establish a monastery on Elephant Bone Mountain. It was Gensha who accompanied him and helped him. One day, while reading the Shurangama Sutra, Gensha had a profound awakening. And he received Dharma transmission from Seppo and became the abbot on Mount Gensha, and he taught there for 30 years. And one of his teisho to his monks was included in the Blue Cliff Record, which I'm going through from start to finish, and I have arrived at, guess what? Case. This very case. This very case. And you thought I would never come back to it. Let's look at it. First, Engo's introduction. So now's your chance. Stand up, do a little dance. You know, I say these things not to elicit humor and a little chuckle or two, but because I'm trying to encourage you to have this spontaneous spirit and to be in touch with what's really going on. And not to think, well, nobody else is standing up. I don't think she really means it. Be playful in your practice. Not just all this serious stuff I've just been talking about. It's not separate. If you get all kind of grim and like, in such a terrible situation. No, you must have this spirit of play. It's really crucial to be able to sing. Engo's introduction. Methods used for teaching in our school. Break 2 into 3. Methods used for teaching. We all know the term upaya, right? Skillful means. Skillful means in working with the dualistic mind, right? 2, everything is either this or that. What happens when they come together? Is it just 1 plus 1? What did the Beatles sing? Huh? 1 plus 1 plus 1 is... Oh, you young people, my God. And the old folks can't remember anything. 3. 3. 3, right? No, I understand. Long before your time. Anyway, expedient means, right, to help students see into their true mind, to see that, as the Shurangama Sutra put it, every conditioned phenomenon is not separate from the essence. True mind and conditioned mind are not apart. and using these means that include dividing oneness into 2 or 3 temporarily, and giving explanations, giving examples, giving pointers, so that what? So that the true mind can come forth. Two into 3. What else are you reminded of when you hear this number 3? The 3 treasures. Huh? The 3 bodies of the Buddha. Yes, absolutely. Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya. Are they 3 or are they 1? And then he says, speaking of profundity from within the noumenon requires thorough investigation. Noumenon. You know what it means, noumenon? The mysterious, yes. The essence, right? Essential fact. How do you speak of it? In other words, do you come out of that essential mind and use words and phrases and get lost in them? Get lost in the forest of words and phrases? How do you speak of it? How do you speak from within it? How do you use words creatively, directly, freely, and leave no gap? This is all part of what we are learning, our method. Somebody asks you, why do you go to the Zendo? Uh-oh. How can I speak of it? If you speak of it from a kind of superficial point of view, no one is helped. In fact, you may be putting some heavy burden on them. It's so important to be able to come from the depths of our own mind. Requires thorough investigation. So total that nothing is lacking. Nothing is superfluous. Absolute, relative, are one. Then Engo says, in accord with circumstances, the master responds. This is very important. We're not just walking around preaching, right? In accord with circumstances. Smashing to bits the golden chains and subtle barriers and leaving no trace. What are the golden chains? What do you think? I think the meaning here, I think Engel's meaning has more to do with the kind of ideals of practice, clinging to attainment and maybe even clinging to the precepts. Well, it says here, I'm going to follow the rules. Concepts about Buddha. Ideas about Dharma. Hakuin Zenji put it this way: shattering the stink of Satori, ordinary sentiments and views of holiness brings people relief. So you go from pew to Phew. Yeah, it's good. Good stuff, right? And in fact, we could say these cutting through these golden chains is cutting through high-end delusions. Subtle. He speaks about subtle barriers, meaning the koans, but these high-end delusions can be very subtle too. Only by smashing these chains and barriers can one be a person of true freedom. Then what? He says, no trace. No trace of what? No trace of what? Self. No trace. Oh, look, I did it. Really? We might say, no one doing nothing. Or as Buji, as Rinzai put it, right? Person of Buji, already done. There's nothing more to do. Imagine if you felt that, really felt that. Wouldn't you get up and sing and dance? There is nothing more to do. Oh, but next Doksan, I have to present on this. I can't get it. I don't know what I'm going to say. It's already said. And then he asks, where is there any entanglement? It's up to you. Really. You know, yesterday we recited Faith in Mind. It says, pursue not outer entanglements. Dwell not in the inner void. Be serene in the oneness of things, and dualism vanishes by itself. As Nikyu said about the Dharma, after years of trying to, okay, I'm going to get the Dharma. Just like, be serene in the oneness of things. Then the Dharma comes all by itself. This is a hard lesson for us, but it's one that we can go back to again and again. Every time we feel frustrated, it's because we've forgotten this very simple statement. How not to be. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Such an important point you're making. It's good. Yeah, it's good. Serenity does not mean complacency. Complacency, how would you define that?
Sit back and let it happen.
Okay, sit back and let it happen. Somebody else? It's not my problem. It's their karma. We are all connected. So yeah, not complacent. And then he says, those who have the third eye see the following. The third eye, sometimes referred to as the Dharma eye. Maybe some of you have experienced in Samadhi this third eye kind of tingling. Tonight you will. Yeah. In any case, in the koans we are presented again and again with situations we can't fathom using our well-honed logical intellect. Just doesn't work. So use your third eye to see into it. Now, see the following. How Gensha challenges us with 3, that number again, examples. Charlene, would you like to go and help Kosen? Yeah, I think that would be helpful, since I have more things to cover. And we want your delicious dinner. Okay. Senju said he's going to bring the trays in. So this is a case of 3 disabilities. And looking at these 3 disabilities from the conventional perspective and from the perspective of awakened mind. My mother worked at the Lighthouse for the Blind for a while when she was in her early 20s. And she learned so much from the people she met there, who refused anyone's pity, refused condescension, who had a very cutting sense of humor. And she remembered a couple of things they said. One, maybe you have to be old to know this humor. Typical greeting from one blind fellow to another. Hi, Bill, I haven't seen you in a dog's age. The response, you haven't seen a dog in a dog's age. Then a few of the men were going down the steps to the subway, and one of them called out, "Stop pushing!" And all kinds of havoc broke out. And people were screaming at them, "What's the matter with you? Can't you see he's blind?" It turned out that a blind man with a white cane and dark glasses had been coming up the steps and bumped into her blind boys, who wouldn't dream of wearing the stigma of the blind. And there's another story some of you may know. There's a blind person in a boat with a lantern. Another boat crashes into him. He says, "What's the matter with you? Can't you see my lantern?" The other people, "What's the matter with you? Your lantern has gone out." A blind joke. So yes, sickness, old age, and death. To have disabilities, to work with them, within them, to realize one's karma is just as it is. That is to be free within one's karma. And it's the same with old age. I think Niku and I are 4 years apart. Maybe he's 2 years older than you. And, we're losing this, we're losing that. Don't have the mobility, we don't have the teeth, we don't have the grip. Have you ever tried to take some little bottle top off? No. And yet, Some of you may remember the man who had so many problems, and someone said, you have to go see Sono. And she told him, well, I can only say what it is that I do every day. I say, thanks for everything. I have no complaints whatsoever. So live that way. Yeah. And also you may remember that Soen Roshi's teacher at Ryutakuji, Yamamoto Genpo Roshi, Genpo Gyun Zenji Daiyosho, was nearly blind. Yet his insight, his true sight was phenomenal. And he was renowned throughout Japan and sought after for his wisdom, not only by Buddhist practitioners, but by government officials, especially during the war in the Pacific. Seeking a way to end the war, Prime Minister General Kantaro Suzuki consulted Genpo Roshi, whose very words were used to announce Japan's surrender, August 15, 1945. We must endure what is hard to endure. Persevere in what is hard to persevere in. Maybe on Sesshin registration forms, that would be very helpful, right? This is what you're getting into. No pity and self-pity and condescension are our problems. They come when we see others' disabilities as opposed to normal, quote unquote, abilities. And this is the epitome of dualism. And we think, oh, how can they awaken if they cannot see when the Zen master holds some Hosu staff? How can they awaken if they can't hear the words of the Teisho? How can they awaken if they can't respond in words? Really, our question ought to be what? With that mindset, how can we awaken? Right? We walk around thinking, oh, those poor people. There's that kind of, ugh. But I can see, I can. And not really. So that is what brings us to Umon when he was asked by a monk about this case. Umon Bunen Zenji. Great figure, great towering figure of Zen. As I said, he and Gensha were brother monks at Seppo's place. And he founded the Umon school of Zen. So the monk comes to Umon and he's asking about those people whose eyes and ears and tongues don't work the way they're supposed to. This kind of conventional reality that we all fall prey to. These poor people out there. It's an abstraction, right? Umon brings it all home. Bow. Oh. What do? Backing away, right? Oh, I guess you're not blind. Then he told the monk, "Come closer." "Oh, I guess you're not deaf." And then he asked, "Do you understand?" "You're not mute." At this, something happened to the monk. Not out there. Not disability. Just, oh. I've got it. So anyway, with some insight, we have a completely different understanding of what it is to be blind, deaf, and mute. Not on the superficial physical level, but this darkness, right, in which nothing can be distinguished. What does it say in the Heart Sutra? Right? Therefore, we can truly see, truly hear, truly smell, taste, touch, comprehend, speak, and mind. From that essential nature, an expression has it to hear with the eyes and see with the ears. Unlimited. The truth is not out there. There is no inside versus outside. Here you are. One with everything, as the hot dog vendor said. So true. In the Shurangama Sutra, part 2, in the nature of visual awareness, the Buddha told Ananda, in actuality, the eyes themselves simply reveal visual objects. It is the mind that sees, not the eyes. So that should explain everything in this case, right? I've been hearing how wonderful your yoga class is, and I thought, oh, maybe today I'll go, but it's getting so late. This verse of Secho's, allow me to go through it quickly. Blind, deaf, mute. In darkness, no response to potentialities. Right? What is this? From your practice, what is this? I couldn't have said it better myself. No discriminating mind, right? Some of you know Tozan's 5 ranks. This, the first rank, relative in the absolute. We can't even identify each other. This utter darkness. Who am I? Who are you? Next, in the heavens, on the earth, laughable, lamentable. In the midst of it, this, as it is, absolute, whatever words we want to use, we persist in seeking it elsewhere. What a pity, Hakuin Zenji said. we think we have to know, right? In the midst of knowing, we think, oh, how am I going to function if I don't know? And along with that comes the feeling that we have to tell the sun to rise, the flowers to bloom. As I said many times, this is the feeling that many of us have, and we shouldn't judge ourselves for having this feeling because it's how we've coped so far. Traffic cop of the universe. Doesn't work too well. Lots of accidents happen. Then he says, the sharpest eye cannot discern the true form. The keenest ear cannot recognize the mysterious tune. We think, if only my sight were better, right? Or if only I could hear more acutely. No, we have to give it up because this true form, this mysterious tune is not about these already disappearing functions. This tune, this true form of the formless, this mysterious tune. There's a wonderful poem in one of the koans, I think it's case 37 of the Blue Cliff Record. This tune, another tune, no one understands. The rain has passed. The pond is brimful this autumn evening. And then Sesshin says, how can that match sitting alone at an open window? This feeling we have, even all the windows are closed, we are sealed in with our air purifiers. It's an open window. Yes? Leaves fall, flowers bloom, each in their own time. Of course, many of us remember the verse, when useless things don't clutter the mind. Every season is the best season. And Sesshin then asks us, do you understand or not? An iron hammerhead with no hole. Sounds pretty useless, right? This is really speaking to what is this practice. An iron hammerhead, no hole, works perfectly. Faith in mind. So now we have a little bit of time, very little bit of time, for Shavasana. Good idea? Here or on the third floor? Okay. First, we'll end with our great vows.